Good morning. My name is Josh Silver. I'm a co-founder with Rebrand Washington Football. Thank you so much for coming out today. Today we're going to deliver petitions to Mr. Daniel Snyder and the Washington football team. We're going to have a number of speakers, but before the speakers we're going to have Native American singing and prayer. So please, who wants to start leading us off in the ceremony?
My name is Joe Gaines. I'm a Choctaw from Oklahoma. What I want to do is sage everybody off. I want us to have a good feeling here today. But I also want us to remember certain things about our heritage, certain things about history. And I want to bring that history forward a little bit today, to today. Every tribal nation has had their own trail of tears of sort. And I want us to ask our ancestors that they be here with us today. The people that came before us, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, our great-great-great-grandmothers, grandfathers. I want you to ask if they be here with us today and see us in this way. I want you to ask if they have a good time with us here today. These ways that we're doing today, this sage, this little ceremony that we're having here today, has been passed down to us by people just like us. People that follow the cultural manner, follow our traditional manner, that remember the earth, that remember who we are and choose to self-identify with who we are. And don't let corporations or the United States government define who we are. We're not redskins. We're not their mascots. We weren't then and we're not now. And we're not ever going to be. When we ask our ancestors to be here with us today, they're looking down on us and say, oh, just imagine them looking. Oh yeah, hey, that's my grandson, that's my great-grandson, that's my great-granddaughter. They followed the same ceremony that we're going to do today. This sage, what it does for some of you may not know, it asks that the good spirits be with us here today. God, since that's the word we know him by. There's only one.
You gonna smudge everybody?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. They did the same ceremony that we're doing. In that way, they passed us down and it's not forgotten. And our children won't forget either. Well, I'm going to ask Lance and a couple of you other singers sing some prayer songs already. This won't take very long, maybe 5 minutes or something like that. And what this does is it invites the good spirits to be with us here today. Good spirits like this sage smell, and the bad spirits don't. This sage is in every native ceremony there is. It's nothing new, it's nothing I made up. I'm just a common man is what they say, that's all I am. But I want you to join us today. I'll start this way and go counterclockwise. Lance, if you would sing us a prayer song.
Chema
Atako eheko ehektetuk teloy ahoye makiayo yani pikteloy hey. I want to offer a little bit of tobacco. Offer it to the four directions, to the sky, to the earth, and to our ancestors. These are directions that look down upon us. They see us today, they see us yesterday, and they'll see us tomorrow. We pray to them, we honor them, we respect them. Just like our ancestors did. That's very important. You hear traditional people say that all the time about our ancestors. What they give to us. That we can be here today in this way. In this way. Not in the way the United States government wants us to be, not in the way big money wants us to be, not in the way corporations want us to be. The way they gave to us. And they didn't make this up. This is very important too. Our ancestors, we didn't make this up. Compassion, God gave us this way. Told us to be like this. It's not my fault. He told us to pray with sage, pray with smoke. He told us to honor them with that tobacco. It's not something we're just here today doing. I want us to remember that. Lance, if you would, lead us in a closing, opening prayer, please.
I want to thank Rebrand Washington for inviting us all here today. I want to thank Creator for allowing us all to have good health and good mind. I want to be here to pray. Pray for the owner to see that we are human beings and we're not a racial slur, and change his mind and be open to renaming the team to something other than what it currently is. So just thanks again for Rebrand Washington Football for inviting us here.
Okay, good morning. My name is Josh Silver. I'm a co-founder of Rebrand Washington Football. I'm going to make some introductory remarks and then introduce a number of other speakers. This morning on our way over to this event, we read in the Washington Post, united effort for a new stadium. There are some elected officials that are trying to do an end run around us and trying to get something in the federal budget that has to pass in the next couple of weeks to make it easier for the team to relocate to Washington, D.C. And there's a line in this article that we know is completely false. And the line says, while controversy over the team's name has subsided. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the controversy over the team's name has not subsided. Starting from a racial slur, this team is going down a slippery slope of moral turpitude. In the summer, we read about stories of the cheerleaders being mistreated. And then the team hired, out of desperation, a running back that was beating his child. And then most recently, the team engages the services of Reuben Foster, who's been accused of domestic abuse. This has to stop. Rebrand Washington Football is a grassroots organization advocating for a name change. Our major activity is gathering petitions. This year, we are delivering 1,800 petitions to the team. Over 4 years, we have gathered more than 7,140 petitions. The question for team owner Dan Snyder is, does he want to become the last owner to drop a dictionary-defined racial slur as a name for his team. The first owner of the Washington football team was the last owner to integrate his team. He hired an African American in 1962, only a couple of years before I was born. I would hope that Mr. Snyder would not want to continue the infamous tradition of being the last to shed a racist past. But considering the thousands of teams that have shed racial stereotypes, Mr. Snyder's stubbornness may make him the last. Instead, a prominent team in the nation's capital should be setting an example by ridding itself of a racist past. We are releasing a report today called, "Will the Washington football team be the last to shed a racist name?" Ladies and gentlemen, 2,000 high schools have shed stereotypical logos and mascots of Native Americans. In the last 25 years, 28 high schools have eliminated the name R Skins. Will Daniel Snyder be the last? A number of states have passed legislation eliminating or restricting the use of Native American logos and mascots. These include Oregon, California, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Will Daniel Snyder be the last? In 2005, the American Psychological Association passed a resolution calling for the immediate retirement of Native American mascots. Shortly thereafter, the National Collegiate Athletic Association followed up by passing a resolution saying colleges cannot display hostile and abusive racial mascots at NCAA championships. Will Daniel Snyder be the last? If the name remains a racial slur, it serves as a reminder of the dark and racist epochs during which the nation engaged in genocide against Native Americans, enslaved African Americans, and forcibly removed the Japanese to internment camps. Will Mr. Snyder be the last? However, Mr. Snyder, we come and appeal to you. If you change the name, your action would reinforce the best of American history. As a nation founded upon the ideal that all people are created equal and that diversity is its strength. Mr. Snyder, will you be the last? It is a matter of human dignity and respect. Human dignity and respect. Now I introduce our first speaker today, Councilmember David Grasso. He's an at-large council member in the District of Columbia. He was first elected in 2012. This is the second year for Councilmember Grasso joining us. Among all elected officials in the D.C. area, Councilmember Grasso is the strongest champion of changing the name. He is a chairperson of the Committee on Education. And I just want to say this about David Grasso. This has been a lifelong cause of his, economic and social justice. Prior to attending college, David volunteered helping Salvadorian refugees living in Honduras. Very timely issue today. And he was also involved in building a transitional housing program for homeless women and children in San Antonio, Texas. Councilmember Grasso, please.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for having me again this year to continue the call to change the name, to recognize that we haven't gotten it done yet, but that there's still a very loud voice out there saying that it's time to remove this racist and derogatory name from the local football team. I'm very disturbed by the news this morning about the kind of runaround, sneaky way they're trying to build a stadium in our community in the District of Columbia. Myself and several of my colleagues are fighting this effort for multiple reasons, but most importantly because we don't want that name used, put on a building and demonstrating the contradiction with our values in the District of Columbia. So I hope that we can persuade Daniel Snyder. I hope we can persuade the people of the District of Columbia and all around the District of Columbia that now's the time to stand up, say no stadium, as long as this team is still named with such a derogatory name. So I'm going to keep fighting this battle. I hope that you'll bring your petitions to my colleagues. They will have a say in this as well, and many of them still ignore the reality of how harmful this the use of this word is. And I think also to Congresswoman Norton, she needs to see all 8,000 plus of these, because she will do the will of the people of the District of Columbia and can fight with us if we give her the opportunity to do that. So thank you to continue. We will continue this battle until the name is changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aho kage, witaha. I just wanted to say that this gathering today is really important. It's really important for families, for children across the country and here in DC, as we, as football fans, and how many football fans do we have here? Woo! Big woo for me. Go Big Red, go Big Red. That you'll have more fans. You'll have more fans if you change the name. This whole group here would support you. So I just wanted to say those words, but I have a letter here that I'm submitting on behalf of Native Americans in DC, myself, and a few other groups and people who want to share our sentiments on this name change. Dear Mr. Schneider, we, the members of the Native American community of Greater Washington, are here again today to demand the Washington football team change its incredibly insidious and racially destructive name. As members of intertribal nations, we, with intact traditional cultures, values, and identities indigenous to these lands here and across the United States, we implore the R-Word organization to seek out a non-harmful caricature to use as its emblematic mascot. We suggest one that does not conjure the negative effects of systematic racism from the era of anti-Indian policies. Your team's name, as half of the country now knows, is a dictionary-defined racial slur. Defending its history and the rationale for using it, despite clear research findings of its implications to, quote, have a negative impact on the self-esteem of American Indian children, and, quote, establishes an unwelcome and oftentimes hostile learning environment for American Indian students, has made your organization appear immoral by most sports leagues around the country. Other terms that need to be defined on this occasion: civilize, verb, to cause to develop out of a primitive state, especially to bring to a technically advanced and rationally ordered stage of cultural development. Used in a sentence, the Washington football team would be more civilized if its owner changed the name. Woo. Outdated. Outdated, adjective, out of date, obsolete. Used in a sentence, using a racial slur as a team name further shows how outdated the Washington football team has become. We support the outrage and disappointment felt by your very own fan base, as evidenced in the signatures being presented today. You may choose to ignore these staunch voices hanging on to the last righteous straw, as many all too often feel the failures of the team and the organization to address this issue. Or, just as you have ignored the grievances of most Native America, but in the end, the legacy of the Washington football team is eternally tarnished by little more than a few letters. We stand alongside our allies, the Rebrand Washington Football Group members and the DC Council members, in asking you to finally take responsibility and change the mascot and racist name of the team. Lastly, we as Native Americans of the DC area hope to bring forth the understanding that our Native American values and culture are not to be used for profit and prejudice. Even though the offense is ours, the deculturalization forced on us by the Washington football team fans, institution, and its proprietors is an affront to our history within this proud nation and the promise as equal people who serve this nation and whose prosperity cannot be denied. Sincerely, Native Americans of Washington, D.C. area.
Hi everybody, my name is Pete Landeros. I'm a Pasco Yaqui Indian from Arizona. I grew up out here. I'm also a member of the American Indian movement. The word redskin was originally used in an article back in the colonial days for bounties on Native American scalps. And the sentence says, "Leave the redskin, blood-soaked bodies where they lie." That is the original origin of the word. And when the English and the French originally scalped, they started from the front all the way down the hairline, behind the ear, to the crease of the neck. So there was no way somebody was going to survive this. So let's leave the dead bodies where they lie. Every time I see that logo and hear that name, it angers me, okay? You would not see the word nigger with the Klan's uniform as a team logo somewhere, okay? And that's what I see every time I see that name and that logo, all right? It's supposed to be done by a Native American person, but the stance that American Indian movement has against the name and the logo, quite a few years ago, we showed up 5,000 deep at, in Minnesota for a game to show that we don't like this word. And they still haven't done a damn thing about it yet. So continue to fight. We'll always fight against this name until it's changed. I hope.
Opal, you want to speak?
Dagute, my name is Opal Boyer and I'm Dilsehe or Apache and a member of the Yavapai Apache Nation from Camp Verde, Arizona. My parents are Veronica Boyer and James Boyer, and I'm of the Yadukai or White Hills clan. I'm here today as a Native American woman to continue my people's tradition of resistance and speak out against the Washington football team because they're an affront to Native people. And thank you, Rebrand Washington Football, for hosting this event and standing outside and collecting petitions tirelessly for us and supporting us and showing up for us. I'm so tired living here and constantly being reminded every time I see the team name or logo that my people are not taken seriously as human beings or even respected, because this team is allowed to parade us about as mascots. Whenever I see the team name and logo, I feel a sense of shame that I know is not mine to feel. I'm very proud of my people, and I've had enough of the team disrespecting us in this way. Dan Snyder, you and your supporters should be the ones that are feeling ashamed. Is that logo what we're supposed to look like? Did we only exist in history? And why is it okay to erase the diversity of our cultures and ignore our calls for a name change? Are we supposed to be honored by our skins? A direct reference to skin color and a historical term for scalping Native people? We are diverse and beautiful. There are over 5 million of us, with 573 federally recognized tribes, and that number doesn't include tribes with state recognition or tribes who are otherwise asserting their sovereignty without any of the recognition they deserve. We have distinct languages and cultures and creation stories. We persevered through poverty and hate for hundreds of years. Today, our communities are some of the most impoverished and oppressed. Our Native women face disproportionate levels of violence and go missing and murdered at record rates. Our people face the highest levels of police violence and health disparities. Our sacred lands continue to be taken away or destroyed by pipelines, mines, and other polluting forces. In spite of this adversity we continue to face, we are strong, we are resilient, we are healing, and we are powerful. Our people are lawyers, doctors, skilled trades, women and men, service workers, artists, teachers, activists, business owners, mothers, fathers, keepers of our culture. We serve in the armed forces at the highest rates. We serve as tribal chairs and presidents, council members, and serve in Congress. The name and logo do not do our resiliency any justice. The name and logo are demeaning and cruel to Native people. We are not mascots. We are not the stereotype perpetuated by this team. We are human beings living in contemporary times, striving every day for the sovereignty and dignity of our people. The time to change its name is now. Yeah.
Hello, Bill Mosley. I've been active with Rebrand Washington Football for 4 years. And I just want to say that for those who minimize this cause, I want to make the point that every manifestation of racism must be challenged. There's no such thing as a little racism. It's all the same thing, along with oppression of African Americans, Latinos, and all other ethnic groups, and it must be challenged. And we've seen in the news, we know that there's been a rise in episodes of racial taunting, racial violence in the last 2 years. That 2-year time frame is not a coincidence. This has been very much enabled by the current occupant of the White House. Desecration of synagogues, racial taunting of children at school, and of course the brutal murder in Charlottesville last year are just some of the incidents. So this cause against a racial slur against the original inhabitants of our country is an important part of that struggle to combat racism, and we must continue it and strengthen it in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that Daniel Snyder might think he's surrounded by a moat, and that, you know, he's becoming the last one. And, you know, the current occupant of the White House says drain the swamp. We need to drain the swamp around his moat so he can see. Ian Washburn, do you want to say a few words?
Thank you all for coming out today. This means the world to us as we hand over these petitions. We got about 1,800 of them this year. For those who may not know, we gather most of these petitions by hand, just around DC Metro stops. We do about 15 sessions a year. This is our 4th consecutive year. By now we've got about over 4,000 about over 7,000 total that we've delivered to headquarters each year. And without your support, it wouldn't work. So thank you all for coming out. And I would like to lead a little brief chant. Change the name!
Change the name!
Change the logo!
Change the logo!
Change the name!
Change the name!
Change the logo!
Change the logo!
Change the name!
Change the name!
Change the logo!
Change the logo!
Thank you all.
Is there anyone else who wants to make a few remarks?
I'd like to remind the people, not just non-natives, but natives as well, because I know there's some natives that enjoy the name, that there's laws against bullying. The definition of bullying is trying to influence somebody, trying to intimidate somebody. A shift of power. There's laws against that now. People commit suicide. You see it all the time on the news. Cyberbullying, bullying on a playground. Well, let me remind you that bullying isn't just restricted to children. It's restricted to adults. It isn't just restricted to an individual. It includes a race of people. Bullying hurts people, hurts their feelings, hurts their self-esteem, hurts their pride. That's what oppression does. It's what money does. Power concedes nothing without a demand. Power concedes nothing without a demand, and we demand that this be changed. We demand that but we demand that we change ourselves, individually and collectively. Bullying does something to three different kinds of people. The person that does the bullying, is that who he wants to be? He wants to step on somebody's dignity and pride so much it's grinding in the ground because I'm stronger and I'm powerful than you. I defeat you. You want to bully me to make you feel better? You want to bully my people? And what's it do to the one being bullied? What's that do to me? Oh, I'm nothing. He just beats me up all the time. He calls me names. He hurts me. I'm good for nothing. I'm just better off be dead. And what does it do for somebody that's watching that happen? Somebody watching me getting stepped on. Man, oh gosh, I feel sorry for. Or maybe you even say, well, I want to bully him too, if he's so weak. What's it do for a nation? This isn't just a Native American issue. It's an issue of social conscience. What's allowed? What isn't allowed? What does society allow? What doesn't it allow? By the very definition of the R word, it should be enough. That's the definition. That's not my definition. I didn't make that up. Derogatory, discriminatory remarks against Native Americans. Goodness. What would it take for society and for Dan Snyder to change that? What would it take for even my people, Native American people, to see that within themselves and say, you know, really that word is starting to hurt? Because it took me a few times, took me a few years to fully grasp it. I really don't like that word. It is becoming offensive to me. It took 1 time, 2 times, 3 times seeing it. Well, you know, it's not that bad. But over the years, I've come to learn that it is. That making me a mascot, dehumanizing me, dehumanizing my people, relegating us to just a cartoon figure, a caricature. Julius Strasser, during the Nuremberg war trials, was convicted of murder and hung. Julius Strasser never killed anybody. He never actually killed anybody. He was the editor of the Nazi Party, Der Stürmer, the newspaper. But yet his inflammatory remarks, his discriminatory remarks, incited people to do his work for him. He used imagery, he used pictures, he used graphics, he used words, incited other people to kill for him. He was sentenced to die for doing the same imagery that is going on with this R word. The same thing, the United States government sent judges to Europe during the Nuremberg war trials to try him. They'll send people across to Europe using imagery, inflammatory remarks against Jews. But here I am, it's okay to happen in this country. The same imagery, the same demeaning, the same dehumanizing, to incite people to look at me like I'm nothing. He's that picture on the Redskins logo. He's not anything. He's not even hardly human. Look at him. He's up there with that little picture. Doing a tomahawk chop. What's that do to my children? Do my children deserve to be dehumanized? Other kids on the school ground making fun of them. You're just a redskin, ha ha ha. You lost last weekend. You don't mean anything. Do our children deserve to grow up with that? What would happen if Dan Snyder committed child abuse on the streets? If he walked over and hit a child, what would the society do then? But it's okay for him to abuse children by using logos, by having pictures, using imagery. It's okay for him to abuse children then. What's it going to take for society to change? And I agree, there's some people that just will not, they're not going to change. We know that. They're not going to change. They just won't do it. They want to tread upon us. They want to tread upon my people, upon my ancestors. We called our ancestors to be here today. We can feel them. Some people won't change. Others will. Just like it took me a few times. Maybe this will be a start for some people. To begin their changing. Paradigm shift is what they call that. To change their thinking, to change their consciousness. That name, that word, that logo, that imagery is not accepted in this society anymore. Woo! Hokka!
Do we have any other speakers?
Hi, my name is Giovanna Gross. My family comes from the Oglala Lakota Nation, and also my family is also Northern Peruvian. And I just wanted to say a few brief things about the name. So we see the name of Redskin come up to the time where there were red scalps for sale, but there's a longer history to that. And before that, it was body parts. And so there is a long history that goes with that name, Redskin and like the red scalps. And it's linked to Old Indian Head Highway 210 that runs down Maryland. I was taught by the Tyak family that still exists today in Maryland. They are from the Piscataway Nation, the Beaver Clan. That Old Indian Head Highway, actually there was a time before the red scalps that body parts were for sale, and they would line the heads up along Old Indian Head Highway. And you won't hear too much of that history anymore, and if you try to look on the websites nowadays, it'll say that the word is linked to Indian headlands, but it's incorrect. So there is a long and dark history connected with taking of red scalps, and the taking of red scalps traditionally was not a practice that started with the various Indian nations out here. And so there is a long history that's not being told for the Maryland and Virginia natives that still exist today. And I cannot speak for them, but I speak what I was taught and what I know. And their culture still thrives today, both the Maryland and Virginia natives. And for the other indigenous nations, and especially theirs, there's definitely no consultation as to how everybody feels. And the only group, the indigenous nation of the United States, and we are not allowed to have say in various things, and that's one of them. And it's a permanent sting. It's something that brings us down, all the way down in our subconscious, and it just brings the idea and picture of the indigenous race or nation throughout the United States. It just keeps them kind of low, and it keeps that idea of them low. You won't see too much. You won't see real strong racism out here, but where our other community members are originally not from here. For example, I live out here, but my family originally is not from out here. You'll see the racism is strong, and we have to go back and suck out all the poison that has been done throughout United States history. So there should be a way to come together and figure out a way to think of something that's more respectful, because that name does not bring honor. The name of the man One Star, who is said to have come up with the name, was said to have come from the Oglala Sioux Nation. To my knowledge, his enrollment was never traced, nor the name of One Star. And if you rewind a few years back to 1924, we weren't even allowed off the reservation. So there needs to be, we need to go back and correct some things and correct some ideas around the name and imagery. And for sure, the various indigenous nations, especially the living Maryland and Virginia tribes, need to be consulted with before going forward. So thank you, that's my piece.
Peter, a few more words?
Just to let everybody know, this fight's been going on for a really, really long time, since the creation of the team. I know for a fact that Piscataway Nation has been fighting it since its team's been in the state or the DC area. Last year, we did the Red Hawks. They had did a, what was that, on Twitter? They did that? Yeah. It got so many hits that the team had to respond. That should give them an idea. The Cleveland Indians are no longer wearing Chief Wahoo logo. They're still selling it, but they're not wearing it. That should give them an idea of what should be going on here. Okay? And just to say that even though this is a really strong group, to see what happened in Minnesota and what happened in Arizona, where there were thousands of Native Americans who showed up to protest against this team, tells me that it's a strong movement, okay? And we need to continue to fight no matter what in this area, okay? I've talked to groups like Black Lives Matter. I've talked to other racial groups to come out and try to support this. I don't see them anywhere. So it's up to us as an indigenous community to continue this fight in this area no matter what.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Courtney, a member of the Macaw Nation of Washington State. Just want to recognize the land that we are currently on as Piscataway land, and thank you, Rebrand Washington Football, for your tireless work on this, as well as everyone for being here on a Saturday, for councilmen for being here and your constant support. This year, the National Congress of American Indian, along with 9 other equity groups across the country, demanded and set precedent that these mascots affect our students and speak for our youth long before they can speak for themselves. And the need to recognize and respect the humanity of our fellow American Indians is more critical than ever for the future of our nation, and the prospect that our nation's capital would once again be adorned with this derogatory term runs counter to that ideal. And we stand with Rebrand Washington and with all other national organizations to end the name here and across the country on race-based mascots and imagery. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So at this part of the ceremony, I'm going to hand the petitions to the team officials. And I want to say one reason I started getting involved in this movement is I'm Jewish. And can you imagine a logo with a swastika on the helmet? It's basically the equivalent. This has to stop. Mr. Snyder, are you going to be the last? Mr. Snyder, are you going to be the last? These are 1,800 petitions, and I'm going to hand off to the team officials. In addition to the petitions, there's a letter to Mr. Snyder, and there's a report to Mr. Snyder about the 2,000 high schools that have changed the name. Will, Robert, I come to you and hand off the petitions. Do you all want to say anything? Okay. Okay, you got a game to get ready to.
The Little Brothers, Indigenous filmmakers, they remember the Standing Rock Sioux Nation. They created a documentary about the name, the history, and its impact, and we would like to give this to you.
Appreciate it.
So we actually gave that to Mr. Snyder last year, but please watch it. It's a brilliant film.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out.
Okay. So
my other contribution here, I'm going to ask everybody to at least consider this. Whenever you speak that word, I don't care what the context is, you normalize it. When you write that word, you normalize it. I don't care if it's on a sign, on your back, what the context is. When someone sees that word, it's normalized. When you speak it out loud, you normalize that word. You don't hear any other group using a derogatory word about themselves. We have to stop doing that. The Choctaw young man, when he referenced it, he said the R word. That's what we should do going forward. Wanishi for your ears.
The only time I use that word is just talking about it in this context. And hearing what he just had to say, I will no longer use that word in any, okay? Because I agree with what he says 100%. I go home and I fight land rights and water rights and everything else. I go to North Dakota, I do that. In this area, this is the biggest fight. Okay? And that's just the way it is. You gotta show up, you gotta participate. I even ask people that I see in the store, so can I ask you a question? What? Why are you wearing that? I do that at powwows. I walk up to people who are wearing that logo and have that name. Why would you show up and insult my people? Take it off. Go home.
Thank you very much. That's part of educating ourselves and educating others as well. So thanks for everybody's words. And we can change this name individually and collectively. I'd like to ask that the Uptown Boys lead us in a closing song, please.
Yeah.
you up, Tom, boys, for leading that. Just like we started with the opening prayer, we'd like to close with the prayer as well.
Mingo po. Ayala payak. Mananawan pi. Macho punga. Kinanawe. Odowa nishi. Kashilimi. Rawe tahane. Skaya galun mati. Grandfather, we're grateful to be here today. We're grateful to you for all that is. We ask that you hear our prayers today. We ask that the ancestors walk with us, and the ones that brought us here safely get us back home safely. We ask that the people hear our prayers and hear our pleas. We ask that everyone recognizes their own indigeneity and the principles that their ancestors lived by, and that they come forward so that people can live in righteous relationship with creation and with humanity. We ask that you hear our prayers on behalf of all of our people with regard to the damage that this word that we will no longer utter verbally and that we will no longer write. We ask that the people who own this team, who honor this team, who support this team, will also begin to recognize and honor indigenous people and respect us. Kinanawe wadawanishi for all. Amenoho.
Can we do a one group photo?
Everybody, fist up in the air.
All right. Change the name.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.